So this video is about dogma in religion, and I'm going to start this off by talking about the problem of parables, because you have this dichotomy between literal and metaphoric meaning because of the New Testament and Jesus speaking in obvious parables. Then you have this kind of conundrum as far as where the metaphor starts and where it ends, where the literal meaning starts and where it ends, because obviously some of the prophets would have then spoken metaphors as well. And also in Islam, in the Quran, there's probably many prophets who spoke in some form of a parable. So where does it stop and where does it start? Now the two competing ideologies here are fundamentalism and moderates. Now fundamentalists seek a literal meaning to the sacred texts, and this allows a lot of religious persecution. For example, the Inquisition was justified by basically misquoting Jesus in, I believe it was John, whenever he said something to the fact of bring someone here and slay them before me. Taken out of context, that's what they used to justify killing people in the name of Jesus, but that was in the middle of a parable. Now moderates kind of cherry pick whatever they like, and this perpetuates fundamentalism by making assertions that everyone's entitled to believe whatever they want to believe. But they don't take any of the blame whenever that belief hurts anyone. Most people seem to fall into this category. And for some kind of evidence of this, you could talk about the Old Testament laws in Deuteronomy, Leviticus, Numbers, even Exodus. There's a lot of law building in those books. There's a lot of the fundamentals of a society in its first stages, of them basically setting down laws and things like judicial review. So now if you ask anyone a question from that book, then you know the laws that are set forth are horrendous. So most people really are moderates, because very few people would say something like, you know, oh, if your son or daughter comes home to you preaching the gospel of Krishna, for instance, that you should stone them to death. There are few people that are willing to accept that. Now, whether it's fundamentalists or, you know, moderates, there is something that is claimed to be true no matter what. For instance, it's kind of agreed upon in the Christian society in America that homosexuality is wrong. Now, it's these specific assertions where most agree that turn into atrocities. Now, the homosexual one hasn't really turned into anything really devious lately. As far as I know, it hasn't really turned into too much in the past, although I do know that the Nazis persecuted homosexuals along with blacks and Jews. Now, as far as the atrocities committed, I just came up with a little list, and I'm going to go through it just to kind of illustrate the danger of dogmatism, of how if you have a group of people together who all assume one thing, and they don't have any reasoning behind it, and is really just backed by an argument to authority, that really you can get away with an immense amount of horrid things. First, there's Buddhist Burma, where they had human sacrifices. They actually had a quest to kill and bury 500 people at once in order to appease some god. And they only got to about 100 before they were caught. Second, you had Thuggee murderers. There was a religious sect called the Thuggees that strangled people as sacrifices to the goddess Kali, and that estimates for the number of deaths approach about 2 million. Now there was the Mountain Meadows Massacre, and that was a mass killing of a wagon train by Mormons and a group of Indians called the Paiute. I really don't know if I'm saying that correctly. It's probably one of the most famous, the Inquisition. And it was a series of inquisitions started by the Roman Catholic Church. I'm sure that you know plenty about them. I won't go too deeply into that one. Number 5, you had the witch hunts. The colonies during this time turned into almost police states where preaching Quaker beliefs was a capital offense. There were witches burned. You had the Salem witch trials on top of that. Number 6 was the Roman persecution of Christians, which they were persecuted by the Emperor Nero. And some people believe that that's what the Book of Revelation is about. Number 7, you had the Aztec human sacrifices, which are estimated to have about 20,000 people killed yearly to appease the gods. and children were killed also, so that their tears might induce rain. And number 8, you have Islamic jihads. Jihads are mandated by the Quran, and they have killed millions over centuries. The most recent one has been against the United States in our little war on terror, whatever you want to call it. And the last very large jihad came from the Ottoman Empire whenever it was first actually starting to form, and then that kind of carried through till World War One. I don't believe that their involvement in World War One had anything to do with Muslim principles, but the actual building of the empire itself, it was an empire building process through jihad. I also wanted to cover one other dogma in religion that is probably the most recent one, and that is of the Westboro Baptist Church protesting military funerals, and they're protesting a lot of different kinds of funerals right now, and they are doing this on the pretense that God is punishing the United States for the evils that we do. Free speech or not, this is a malicious act. It's something that is done to intentionally hurt people. Whatever your stance on it is, whenever it comes down to it, it's a parent trying to bury a child. Let them have that day, at the very least. If you want to talk about, these things in a public forum, that's one thing. But you should at least give that parent that day to bury their child in peace.